Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is just past 1 o'clock, and we're coming on live right now. Due to some technical issues, we're not going to be able to have Willie Farrell on with us today. So for those of you that were wanting to see his story, my apologies. But what I can do for you is this. First of all, I want you to know about Willie Farrell if you don't know about him. Willie Farrell has been on HBO, Showtime, ESPN, A&E. He's got a huge comedy career that spans decades. He's a regular fixture in all the major comedy clubs in the country, Las Vegas, Atlantic City. He has done all of it, and he's done all of it from Des Moines, Iowa, which is in this day and age fascinating. To me, one of the cool things about Willie Farrell is he was ahead of me 5 years in my high school. Hold on here. Here we go. He might be in. Let me see here. We'll give it I'll hold on. If he can get in, we'll put him in. But he's messaging me as we speak here. Sweet. All right. So he should be here. He should be popping in any time. This will be good. I will look forward to it. But at any rate, Willie Farrell is the pride of Des Moines, Iowa, the pride of Dowling High School, where I went. He was, I believe, 5 years ahead of me. So as he was a senior, I was just coming in. But in Dowling High School, for people that I can think of, there are two well-known. Hey, Dan, good to see you, buddy. There are two very well-known alumni of Dowling High School. One of them is Bob Hansen, who played in the NBA for the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls and has a championship ring. I haven't watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, but he may be featured in there because he won a championship ring with that team. And then Willie Farrell. So at any rate, Willie has just messaged me and we think he can get in. So if it works out, I will pop him in. But one of the reasons that I wanted to have him on is because, and I don't want to get into too much of the story because I want him to tell it. But let's see, here we go. Hold on. Stand by, folks. Here we go. All right. Oops. All right. I see that. Well, you can see me, Willie, but I can't pull you into this because of what I'm using. So that sort of sucks. Willie, if you can, if you can try to click that link that I sent to you in Messenger, I believe if you click that link, it'll pop and say you are entering a studio. And at that point, go ahead and click all the yeses, etc. And I believe we'll get you in. I'm sure you can see me, but unfortunately, I can't pull you into this screen with what I'm using. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. I am excited. Oh, here we go. Here we go. He is in. I can see you there. Here he is. We'll give it a try. He's coming up. Oh my gosh. There he is. Oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Willie Farrell. How are you, sir?
The legendary Willie Farrell. How are you, sir?
Boy, that was a hell of a trip. You had me get on this thing, and I have no idea how to work any of the computer, but my Facebook was messed up because I have two different Facebook accounts, which I didn't know about. Anyway, my wife had to come here and get it all straightened out, but we're straightened out now, and here I am.
Oh, my God. So awesome. I was giving everybody a little bit of an intro about you because I knew you were coming in. So now you went, as I was mentioning to people, the pride of Dowling High School in Des Moines, Iowa. One of two, the two famous people that I know from Dowling, Willie Farrell and Bobby Hansen.
There you go.
Two. I mean, there are others.
Bobby's on shows with Michael Jordan, and I'm me and you are together, so that works.
Exactly. It's
kind of funny, John. My daughter is my daughter's the head coach at Dowling, the softball. Coach, and they're deciding today whether they should play high school softball this summer, and I don't know how I feel about it. I was just mentioning that with all the social distancing, I don't know who chases the ball to the fence if they have to play rocks, paper, scissors to see who. It's going to be nuts, but whatever.
Oh my gosh. And people don't know this, but your wife went to high school with my sister, Betsy Erickson. So
I'll be darned. Huh.
Yeah.
I'll let her know. Hey, honey, you went to school with Betsy Erickson? Okay. That's her brother, John. All right.
Perfect. We're all taken care of. All right.
There we go.
So one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on is, first of all, you're a legend in comedy, and how you made it all happen from Des Moines, Iowa is fascinating story number one. But the other thing, because we're in pandemic times, you've got a personal experience with COVID-19, and I want you to tell people about it because I think it's very important. There are so many people that say, I don't know anybody that had it. You had it.
It's funny you should mention that, because before this all went down, I remember having a discussion with my daughter, who's 24, and I work out in Vegas 2-3 weeks a year. I had a chance to go out there at the start of March. Anyway, my daughter started in on Dad Don't Go, and the first thing I said to her was, "Oh, Claudie, you don't even know anybody that has COVID-19. You don't even know anybody that knows anybody that has COVID-19." So I go out to Vegas to work out at the LA Comedy Club at the Strat, which is my home club, and I love it out there. We get 2 days in. Last show. Matter of fact, I was the second to last show in the country that night because they closed up all the other shows, and there was one other show after me. But then after that, they closed Vegas. They closed everything, and it was on St. Patrick's Day. Did the show. Place is packed. You're not thinking anything of it. I mean, pandemic. I mean, that's something. That's a movie, right? So we get done, and we're like, well, okay, I guess this thing's real. We're gonna go home. So I come home. And the next day, my wife basically says, we're quarantining everybody. You're going upstairs. Claudia's going down to the basement, and I'll stay on the main floor. And I'm like, honey, I'm not sick. I feel fine. This is nuts. Why are you doing this? And John, I'll be damned. It was two days later, I started getting a fever. And I never get a fever. I mean, I'm just one of those guys. I just don't. And I got the fever. And next thing you know, the appetite's completely gone. I mean, gone to where I eat a lot, and I don't want to touch a thing to eat. Get diarrhea, and then the cough came in, and then that's what the scary thing, because this cough is so deep. It's nuts. And off and on, I would have the fever, and I would have the cough, and every once in a while the fever would go away, and every once in a while the cough would go away. And this is like a week of this, just on and off. And my wife was smart enough to call a triage nurse. She says, we don't know if he has it or not, but let's just monitor him. And in the meantime, what they're doing is my wife's giving me Tylenol PM, which I'm taking in the AM, and I mean, just nothing better than Tylenol. Tylenol PM, Mucinex, and NyQuil. That's it. That's the trifecta. Because basically what I try to do is just sleep through the whole thing. So I'm doing that, and a day or two goes, I lose the cough, and I'm thinking, this is great. And then one night it came back, and it came back to where, I've never been scared for my life ever. The cough was at the point where I honestly thought I was going to die. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I didn't even wake my wife up. She was up, and I basically said, you got to get me to the hospital because I think I'm losing it. So we go in, and they did the thing with the swab in the nose thing and all that, and they were wonderful at Methodist Hospital. Got home, and they were literally like 4 hours. I mean, I know they say it takes longer than that, but like in a 4 hour period of time, they came back and said, he's got it. So I went up to the room, and that was it. Then no one talked. I was like Rapunzel. I stood up there, and I just look out the window at people.
Oh my gosh!
And my wife would, God bless her, she would basically just open the door. I could see Lysol first, and then she'd throw the food in and slam the door shut. And I was like Patty Hearst. I was like I got kidnapped, and we just continued that. The bad part of that, though, once you find out, is then they take you off everything because you need to break the fever. Sorry about that. You need to break the fever without any medicine. So then it was 3-4 days of just not taking anything, and that was very tough because the cough I felt. You know, it would go away, but then I also knew the feeling of it could come back. So you never felt like you were out of the woods ever. Yeah. And
so how long did they keep you in the hospital? Just a few hours, or did it send you right home?
No, I wasn't. I actually came home from the hospital. I did this at home. But they kept me in the hospital just for 4 or 5 hours just to check me out. But and did all these tests on me. They did a bunch of X-rays. And they took blood. I think they took a little too much blood, to be honest. It's one of the things where they need to check your blood. And then you're like, what? How much? Did a disco blow up or something? Or there's some people that need blood? Horrible. Yeah, it was bad. But the thing is, that's the whole thing is that the people that I keep losing my plug. The people that keep thinking that this will never happen to you is. It can happen to you. You just got to be careful. And the thing is, John, we're at that age where, I thought to myself, I'm going to be fine because, I'm in relatively good shape. Yeah. And then it finally hit me. I'm 64 with a stent. So I'm one of those guys that could go down, so.
Yeah. Gosh. All right. Let me catch up here. Tyler Stinky says hello.
Tell Tyler hi. He calls me Willie Farrell. Calls me my whole name every time.
He sure does.
Yes.
Andy Fisher says you couldn't take anything, not even Tylenol.
No, nothing. Nothing at all.
So I know one thing, Willie, because I saw on your social media, and John Bush mentioned this to me, that you had lost your sense of smell and taste. Has that come back? Still gone?
No, it has not. And that's the bad part about it is there's a chance it might not. And I've learned something from that too after going to the Eyes, Ears, and Note guys that it's mostly you lose your sense of smell. I guess that's 80% of it because the doctor told me, he said, no, you can still taste, and I can to that point because I can taste salt and I can taste sweet and I can taste a little spicy, which is horrible also because I'm hypertension. I've got high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing lately is just pouring salt all over my food just so I can feel like I'm eating something.
Gotcha.
But that's the scary part. Is I went the other day. Good news is I found out I have the antibodies, so I can I can get blood. But the bad news is they just don't know if this is going to come back or not.
Yeah, it's interesting. They had a story today about how they tested it on some monkeys or something. They didn't get it back, but everybody's like, no, well, we're not monkeys. Well, doy.
They tested on monkeys and they didn't get it back. There you go. That's pretty much me. I'm a monkey anyway, so that's.
But this is the start of Planet of the Apes right here. All right, so here's a question from David Harris. I think David. Did your wife decide to quarantine you before you had it?
Yeah, that's pretty. I get that. That's the joke around the house is that they say the social distancing. We've been practicing that for a long time, and she's made it very clear that we'll just keep that up from now on. So. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! All right, so we're very glad you're healthy. Although you're still a little bit nervous it'll come back because it's.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows what exactly how this works at all. So I mean, it's very scary, because if it comes back, I'm sure it's going to try to kill me this time. It tried to kill every a relative I had in Italy. So I'm sure it's still gunning for me.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh! All right, so. Let's talk a little bit about your comedy career because it's been long spanning, right?
Yeah, it's 30-some years. It's been quite a while.
Absolutely. So did you start doing stand-up right out of high school?
No, not at all. I what do you call it? The very first time I took stage, I was 24. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of funny. I put it on Facebook before because at the time I did it, KCCI was there and actually filmed it. And I think I think it holds up pretty well. Here's what happened. Right out of high school, I went to school for a second. I went to Iowa, went to Drake for a minute. My brother owned a bunch of bars downtown at the time. Jukebox Saturday Night.
Oh yeah,
and the Blue Max, and And that was, I mean, I was one of those kids. I was one of those John Travolta kinds. I was just hanging out and really wasn't taking things serious. As a kid, I used to hang out at Columbus Park, which is where all the Italian kids hung out. And we did like everybody else did in the 70s. We went down there, everybody smoked and drank and kind of cha-cha'd each other. And my friends always thought I was funny. So in January of 1980, the Ingersoll Dinner Theater was having a comedy. They were trying to do stand-up comedy, which nobody knew anything about.
Right.
And they decided, my friend said, look, you go do it. We'll come watch. It'll be funny. So I show up there. It's like a Monday night, and I figured no one would be there. The place is jam-packed. And I don't want to go up. I tell my friends I'm not doing this. And they go, well, we all paid like $3 to get in. And I didn't have any money, so I had to do it or I'd pay them back. And so I go up, and I'll send you there, or you can go look on my Facebook. You can find it. What happened was I get on stage, and there was a bunch of people before me. As a matter of fact, there was a bunch of Ben Hewlin was on that night.
Oh, wow.
I think Dave and Steve Higgins from Saturday. I think they were there. Steve Higgins from Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon, a bunch of people. Anyway, there was a heckler in the crowd. He was bothering people, and it was kind of throwing a lot of people off because it was 1980. No one really knew what a heckler was.
Yeah.
And he got on me, and the Italian kid Dago stuff just kicked in, and I went right after him. And the next day, there's an article in the paper talking about the comedy timing of Freddie Prinze with the smoldering good looks of Tony Danza or something like that. And so a friend of mine from childhood, Johnny Pascuzzi from KCCI, said, you ought to really try to get out in L.A. So I went to L.A. I went to L.A. like in 81, and I was out there for about a year or so, met a lot of people. And then my mom was having some problems, so I decided to come back, got out of comedy for a while, worked for my uncle at beer distributorship, and didn't get back into it again until like 84, 85. And then by that time, I decided I'm just going to stay Midwest, and I did a lot of corporate's always been my thing.
Yeah.
But very first paid gig I had was down in Kansas City at Stanford & Sons.
Oh, yeah.
And the middle act, I remember I was the middle act was Sinbad. So I remember.
Oh, wow.
So that's basically what I would say my career kind of really actually started was like probably 84, 85. So 35 years. But yeah, that was it. I waited. I was, well into my late 20s before I really thought maybe. And I always said to myself, once I can't actually make a living, I'll go do something else. So I've been lucky so far.
Absolutely. I got to work with you one time.
Yes.
If you recall, it was at the Meskwaki Casino in Tama. Yeah.
Yes.
Tom.
You know what's funny about that, John, is I'm filling in for a dead guy, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you are. Yes, sir.
While Bill Bauer had recently passed, and I remember them and John and Tom saying, "Well, we need another old guy," and so I fit the bill. So that was nice.
It was, and we were always very, very grateful to Jeff Johnson for holding that gig for us.
Yeah, definitely.
But
are you guys still doing that? Is that still going on?
No, because Bill, Wild Bill was just the organizer. He would come up with that stuff, and I don't know what Dean's doing. I know Tom's doing some stuff from time to time, but of course, since all of this stuff, everything goes to hell, right?
Yeah. It's funny, John. I knew Wild Bill, but I actually knew his wife a lot better.
Oh yeah.
Remember Peg?
I never met her before she passed. But
she passed? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I heard she
she reminded me of Peg Bundy. She was like Peg Bundy.
Yeah.
But I used to go up and do gigs back in the 80s for the Hansons, and they would have all those crazy gigs where you would go across Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and and for some reason I always ended up in a car with Peg Bauer and Charlie Walker, and that was because when I first started, I also would go up to Minneapolis, and that was back when Stephanie Hodge was married to Scott. They were married, and they had a house, and they had a comedy club where they didn't actually serve liquor, and I would go up and work up there all the time. Yeah,
the Comedy Cabaret. That's one of the first places I went to watch comedy in Minneapolis, and when I moved out there.
Wow.
But gosh, yeah. And so for so long, I recall that there was comedy in Des Moines at the Spaghetti Works.
Yeah.
And then the Funny Bone opened up in Windsor Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Did you work both of those at the same time?
The Spaghetti Works had kind of calmed down by that point. I really didn't, but yeah, I would bounce back and forth because the guy at the Funny Bone at the time that came in, Mark Johnson, was pretty cool about it. He said you can do both, and besides that was back in the days. The Funny Bone came into town and went right away. It was a Tuesday through Sunday. You were doing 8 shows a week. So there really wasn't much time for the Spaghetti Works. But if I ever had a minute off, I'd go over there. But yeah. It's so funny when you think about those days. I mean, I can remember going up to Minneapolis and it seemed like the Hansons brothers had a club in every Holiday Inn and lounge in the city. I mean, yeah. Yeah,
I know they had at least 6, if not more. And I'm sure there were other people that can tell me that. Okay, here Tyler's wanting to know if you can pick on me. I think that's rude.
No, Tyler, I'm being nice. I see Tyler. He's a good guy. He hangs out down at Tamiya's all the time. You ever eat at Tamiya's on the South Side, Johnny?
I never have.
With some of the best Italian food of course, all the South Side's got good Italian food, but the Tamiya's is very good. And I see Tyler down there all the time. He's a world class bocce ball player. So.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Dan Bublitz was Peg a comedian too. Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she was.
And a very good one at that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you've been on TV multiple times.
Yeah. I used to do back in the day. I used to do A&E all the time, Comedy on the Road, and even with the Improv, and And then I did a Showtime special, and I did a thing for ESPN back in the day. Yeah.
The Showtime was the Godfathers of comedy, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And was that all Italian based?
There was a guy that thought it was a good idea. This is back when Blue Collar first came out, and the Latino one. So he just went around and looked for Italians, and it was me, Rocky Laporte out of Chicago, John Campanera, who used to have his own. John Campanera had The Good Life. He had his own sitcom out of Chicago. Frank Santarelli, who was Georgie the bartender on Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
And another Italian guy named Paul D'Angelo out of Boston. And we taped it in Chicago, and then we toured a little bit. We did a little bit of a tour, but between the promoters and everything, it got everybody got mad at each other, so it kind of broke up.
Absolutely. So you do a lot of corporates. I know that, and you incorporate a lot of crowd work in your show. So how was it different from your regular show that you do out in public versus recording? Not a lot, or
not really. The only real difference is just content. Just basically, you can't drop a lot of F-bombs at the corporate.
Yeah.
And they both got their pluses and minuses. The corporate, what's nice sometimes is that sometimes you don't have to be that funny as long as you're on the mark. As far as like a corporate, sometimes all you have to say is, "Where's Jim from accounting?" And you'll get a huge laugh for no reason. But there are, John, there are hell gigs. Let me give you a couple of hell gigs I had.
Oh, yes.
Corporate gigs. I did one time, and I used to get a list. I would say, give me a list of some of the people's names, just a little something about them, and then it'll lead me right to them instead of me walking around trying to figure out. And like I said, Jim from accounting gets a laugh. So anyway, I'm doing this show, and it's killing. And they give me this long list. Well, right before the show, this drunken secretary came up, and she said, "Put on the list. Put on Bob and Sharon. Ask about Bob and Sharon." All right, so I write it down. So I'm doing the show, and I'm killing, I'm murdering. I get the last 5 minutes, and I'm like, ha, ha. So anyway, hey, how about this Bob and Sharon? This woman jumps up, screaming, crying, runs out of the room. The guy just slams his head on the desk. Everybody goes, they're having an affair. Secretary. So now I'm trying to explain to everybody, hey, I'm not Kreskin. I don't know who these people are. I was given this, I'm dig. There's a hole so deep I can't. I got a miner's hat on trying to get out.
Oh my God!
Now that's not even the worst one. The worst one is I'm doing a show for this big company. There's probably 1,000 people. They got a beautiful stage. They got the overhead screen where they're showing. How like during dinner they might show flicks of their last dinner, or pictures of a picnic, or so I get ready to go on. The big screen's on. The guy's getting ready to introduce me, and right before I come on the screen, there's a picture of this woman, probably 85, leaning over a desk, smiling with her glasses on, looking very happy with some balloons next to her. Cake, must have been her birthday. Says right underneath it, right on Dolores, 1912 to 2001 or whatever. She's dead. Okay, that's what she's dead, and she was the secretary for 1,000 years. And now this guy is like almost crying. He's like, we're gonna miss her. And she used to bring the apple pie. No one made better apple pie. Where's the comedian? And now I don't mind that he introduces me right after that, but they don't turn the screen off. So Dolores is still on the screen, and I got to stand in front of her. So now she's actually projected onto me.
Oh, so my God.
I looked down at my crotch, and it was the date she died. Right on my. I can't tell them to turn it off. You know what I mean? Someone's got to. So they turned it off after a minute or so. But
oh my gosh!
So that's what you get. That's what you get with the corporate. But on the other hand, like I said, it's sometimes there's two different things. The corporates are nice because you show up, you're the only person there. You don't got an MC or a middle act trying to blow you out of the water. For the most part, if they're drunk, they're usually policed fairly well. And, they usually give you a nice cocktail beforehand. After you drink that, you're going to go to a nice hotel room afterwards. The check is 10 times bigger than at the club. That's nice. But on the other hand, there's something about being in a hot comedy club with your friends with a hot room, you need that every once in a while. That's why I don't do that many comedy clubs, but I'll always do Vegas, and I'll always do Des Moines and Omaha Funny Bones.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
And of course, when you go out to Vegas, you're out there for a whole week, right?
Yeah. But it's such an easy gig. It's a Monday through Sunday. Usually the show's at 8:00. I'm headlining it, so I go on about 8:30. I'm off by 9:05. And the rooms are always just packed, and they're always hot and they're fun, and it's a vacation pretty much when you're out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you done cruises?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of them. I got to the point I couldn't handle those anymore. Thank God I got off when I did. But I've probably done 30-some, 40-some cruises. Used to do Norwegian cruise line. The Hawaii one was great. Bermuda was great. But I got to where I like doing them if they let me do them a week. But a lot of times they get you on there and then they try to sign you to a contract and they want to keep you on forever. And I just can't. I feel for I've got a lot of good friends, John Joseph and Gary Delina. These are guys that have made their living on cruises, and they make big money. And they're out of work.
Yeah, that's tough. Now when you were doing the cruises, were you confined to entertainer area, or were you free to run the ship?
I like Norwegian because it's been a few years since I've done them, but. The difference, I know now, like Carnival and stuff, they actually got a comedy club on there, so you do work every night. Yeah. Norwegian was literally, you would go on, and you might do a cruise out to sea where they bring in a big room, and you do 15 minutes, and then maybe during the week you might do one headlining gig in the big room, 1,500 people for about 40 minutes, and then a lot of times that was it. I mean, the rest of the time you're just a passenger. And I always had a pretty good in with the people, so I never got the crew rooms. I always had a room with a nice window and stuff. But it gets. I mean, I've taken my wife on the Hawaiian ones, which were great. But I mean, seriously, unless you're a guy that's out there and wanting to have fun with, it gets pretty boring after a while. You can only just sit around and drink so many pina coladas by a pool. So
absolutely. Yeah. Here's a question from Large Marge: can you work blue on the cruise?
They've changed. Yeah, I think now I know. I think Carnival and a couple of the other ones they've got what they call a comedy room now. When I worked, no. I mean, it was basically you were just you're working, like you would just a very clean corporate show. But these cruises now, they've got regular comedy clubs, and you can just work like you would at a Funny Bone.
Yeah, I think the last I heard, what they like is they like you to have 1 hour that's clean and 1 hour that's not, and some of that can intertwine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is
And they're
which is
doing it
nice.
now to where I guess it'd be better because I know a lot of them they actually use a few comics, so at least you got somebody to buddy around with.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, John. In this day and age, would you go back on a cruise ship? I don't think. I mean, it's too spooky out there anymore. I mean, it just I don't know. Too many cooties running around.
Well, I'll tell you what. I am. Here's my buddy Dave. He and I do a show on Tuesday nights about professional wrestling.
Oh,
And he and I are going on a professional wrestling cruise scheduled for the end of January.
Wow. Where are you going? What ship and where are you going?
It's Norwegian Cruise Lines. It's out to the Bahamas. What is it, Dave? 4 days. 4 days. It's with a big. There's a whole huge new group of wrestlers called AEW. And one of their main guys, Chris Jericho, he's the guy. It's his cruise. You know,
it's funny you said AE. It makes me think about Anderson Erickson. It's like
one of the best dairies in the country.
Cottage Cheese Boy will come out and take you down. Are you sailing out of Miami?
Yes, sir, we are.
Yeah. It's Norwegian's a beautiful ship, and they do a top notch job. So you should have a good time.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's
January.
Yeah, the Pearl to the Great Bahamas for 4 days. I gotta have something.
I've done the Pearl. You'll love it. Yeah, awesome. Let me know if you can remember who the comic is. Let me know later.
Absolutely. Well, so the thing is, Chris Jericho books a ton of guys. The first cruise he had Brad Williams. The second cruise he had Gabriel Iglesias, among others. There's more than that. I haven't gone on the first two. I'm going on the third one. I got talked into it.
Very nice.
But so it's all top notch.
Oh yeah.
So Willie, this is Carol. She's from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Wondering if, as a comedian, do you have your own health insurance?
Exactly. I am. Both my wife and I are self-employed. She sells real estate. So yeah, we do have our own health insurance. And if I told you the premium, you might have a heart attack. So I mean, it's we pay a pretty penny.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do this because it keeps popping up. Tyler wants to know if I am related to Laura Holmes. Yes. Am I related to Mary Russell? Yes. And my sister says, Laura says, the comic will be Tyler. So
there you go.
Perfect. So out of all the stuff that you've done, what is, if you can nail it down, what is the one thing, Willie, that made you feel like I am on the top of the world? This is the best that it's ever going to be. I have made such a great choice in life.
You know, it's funny. It's because, as you know, this business is such a roller coaster. But I can remember this is about, I want to say about 10 years ago or so, maybe even longer. I got a gig. An agent called me and said, "Do you want to do this gig for an insurance company in Lincoln, Nebraska?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want." The pay wasn't that good. It was a corporate, but still, it's like I'll go do it. So I go do it, and afterwards, it was kind of fun because the Untamed Shrews were working someplace else, so I got together and drank. But anyway, I do the gig, and I don't think anything of. The president of the company comes over. He's drunk. He's like, "Would you like to do our national gig?" And I'm thinking, this guy's drunk. He's just joining us. Yeah. Anyway, it ends up they fly me to Kona, Hawaii, put me up at the Four Seasons for 4 days, pay me a ton of money. I got my own suite and everything, and I only had to do a half hour for 1 day. And,
my God! And
I remember sitting in my little balcony overlooking the ocean, thinking to myself, "Okay, this is my life now. This is, and flash forward to 3 days later, and I'm in Seguri, Iowa, working, the hog trough someplace. Just when you think this is where I'm supposed to be. Every time I work Vegas, you feel like it's such a roller coaster. I mean, I can remember the very first time I had a big gig. I got to open for what was his name? The hell was his name? The guy that was Leon Redbone.
Oh,
I opened for him quite a few times. But I did a big gig for him in Omaha at the Orpheum Theater, and it just went great. And man, big crowd and went nuts. And go out afterwards and get in my car. Car won't start. So next thing you know, I'm on the Greyhound back to Des Moines. It's just
Oh,
you're in
my
front of
God.
1,000 people 1 second, just knocking them dead. The next thing you know, you're just sitting next to a guy that just wet himself. Well, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it happens to all of us, which
Yeah,
is, and it's nice to know that it happens the same way to somebody that's risen to the top like you have. Oh
Well,
my gosh.
I think that, but on the other hand, I think that's what makes it fun sometimes is that, you can't really appreciate the great stuff unless you've done the really horrible stuff, right? So
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Cindy Strickland says hello from Alabama. She's down close to Birmingham. She's been watching us every day during the pandemic. Always happy to see you, Cindy. Gosh, Willie, so do you have any real, what's the word I'm thinking of? Stories of you rubbing elbows with some of the top guys that maybe are a little bit.
That's always been my problem. And, as I look back, as I wind this whole thing up, as I think about all the gigs that I've done and all the people I've met, Seinfeld and Carlin, and I never was one to, especially back in the 80s and 90s, because if you wanted a picture, it wasn't like you could pull out your phone. You know what I mean? You had to think yourself ahead of time. I toured with the Beach Boys a little bit and worked in Temptation and all these gigs, and I never, I enjoyed them, but I never took the time to even take a picture. You know what I mean? Just I can remember starting off and working with Louis Anderson and Sam Kinison at the Funny Bone, and I met them all and sat around and talked to them, but never really, just thought it was a nice night and let it go at that. Not an autograph, not a picture, nothing. I just, I think some of the funnest I've done was when I first met my wife. I got a chance to work Atlantic City with Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Oh, wow.
And Claridge Hotel. And it was cool. They had the dressing room with the star and their name. And, and it was like, that was a feeling of, okay, this is kind of cool. And he was a great guy. And then it was like maybe 10 years later, I was working in Vegas with Bobby Slayton. And Little Anthony came to see Bobby Slayton. And then after he saw me, he remembered me. And then we hung out that night in a lounge watching some other act sing Little Anthony songs while I drank with the crew. And it was like, this is kind of cool. This is Vegas.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, Willie, do you have anything? Obviously, you're not working for a while. I was going to say, do you have anything you want to plug?
Today, I had something, which almost didn't come true because I didn't know how to make anything work on my computers.
We got there. It's no worries, right?
Yeah. No. It was all on me. I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm supposed to be working in September in Michigan with one show. I'm supposed to be working with a guy named Gianni Russo. And if you're not familiar, you can Google him. He was Carlo in The Godfather. He was the one that Sonny beat up with the trash can.
Got kicked he
does stories. He sings songs and he tells stories. It's an Italian restaurant in Detroit that's had me a few times called Andiamo's, and they like to bring an Italian act, so they're bringing him in and me. And then after that, I'm actually supposed to be back there with my buddy Vic DiPatetto. And do you know Vic at all? Vic's
I don't know him personally, but I know of him.
Well, you see him on Facebook and stuff, ranting and spitting at the especially with what's going on today. You watch him and he's just constantly spitting into the camera because he's so upset. But that's supposed to be. Well, I'm supposed to be at the Funny Bone into August, which I don't know if it's going to be open or not. That's in September. We'll see what happens.
And they'll be the one in Des Moines.
The Italian Fest this year. We're not having that this year, so
that'll be at the Funny Bone in Des Moines in August.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like August 18th, 19th, something like that.
Awesome.
Well, we'll see.
Awesome.
You come around very much, Johnny?
You know what? I haven't. Here's the thing. My mom lives in Urbandale.
Yeah.
I have not been to see my mom now with all this stuff. I don't think I've been to see her for a couple of years. And it's terrible because what was happening was I was also doing home health care for old guys with dementia. Wow. And they don't know from the weekend or a holiday, right? My
mother died of Alzheimer's, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's
tell you what, though, if the Bones open in August, will you come down and do a guest set for me?
I would love to, Willie. I would love to. Yeah. It would be my pleasure to do
put it on the book.
There's David. He thinks David loves Vic. Absolutely.
Yeah, Vic's out of his mind. Yeah, what you
Absolutely.
see on there is what you get. He's completely nuts. So
Sometimes it's not an act, folks.
no, sometimes.
All right. Well, do you want to see if anybody has any questions for you quick,
Sure.
and then we'll if you've got any questions for Willie, go ahead, pop them right in the chat, and we will answer them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep him on forever.
Much like my father, I may take the Fifth Amendment though.
I always, if I do questions, I always tell people I will answer you as honestly as possible.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll give these folks a little bit of time.
Sure.
We'll see how they do.
No problem.
And
this is nice. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out.
Hey, you know what? I'm happy that you did figure it out because it's just honestly, you have been one of those guys up on the hill for me because I started doing this very late in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't start until I was 47.
You know what? Can I tell you what, John? I was having a discussion about this the other day with somebody, and this is the one thing more than any other thing. Comedians, you know what? Watch Don Rickles at 90. He's funnier than he was when he was at 50. I mean, it's no coincidence that George Burns and Milton Berle's and. You can go. Seinfeld's still as funny as ever. He's 67 or whatever. Robert Klein. I mean, this is the great thing about what we do is because what makes you better is the experience that you gather. So the older you get, as long as you don't completely lose your mind like your dementia guys, you're going to be fine. And even then, that's funny for a while.
It's not bad. I always liked working with him because I could always tell him the same joke. And he always thought
what's funny? I used to do a joke, and it's true. My mother, like I said, had Alzheimer's, and I remember one time my sister called me. She was taking care of her before we finally had to put her at home, and my sister was going crazy. She's going, "You gotta do something." Mom's going. I said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "She keeps on saying she's late for work. She's late for work. What am I supposed to tell her?" So I said, "Put her on the phone." So my sister sees my mom get on the phone and go, "I'm late for work." And all of a sudden she goes, "What? Oh, okay." And she hands the phone to my sister and goes and sits on the couch. And my sister said, "What'd you say?" And I said, "I told her you're late. Just take the day off." So.
Perfect. All right, here's a question from Jenny Lou Rusi. Yep, Jenny is a professor up in Valley City.
A few years ago. Yes, there was a comedy club that I did in Fargo, probably a few years ago.
Courtney's.
Yeah, there you go. Is it still around? Well, nothing's around.
Courtney's is closed, but they've got a different situation up there. It's a place called The Cellar. But Courtney's is defunct, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Dan Bublitz says, "Have you started booking for the rest of the year?" Well, obviously you've got some stuff that's already booked.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll just see how it all plays out. I'm working on a one-man show that I've been doing for a while. It's a kind of a story of my life, and basically talking about my father. And my father had a very colorful past. My dad was a gangster. A real life one. Google it. Basically, I'm working on doing a story about growing up with him and my brother Frankie, who was killed in a plane crash with Rocky Marciano, and I got a lot of stories to tell, and I'm trying to make them as funny as possible. So hopefully by next year, that's what I'll be doing is touring with that.
Oh, that'll be fantastic. Yeah. Jenny also says, "Thanks for addressing maturity."
Yes.
Carol says she met Milton Berle. You ever get to work with Milton Berle?
No, I saw him once. I didn't really even. I kind of waved at him, but there's some stories about Milton that are Uncle Milty. Very funny.
Yeah, Uncle Milty's pants. That's as clean as I can say it because I know my mom is watching.
It's kind of funny is that you talk about those old vaudeville comics and all those Catskills. I mean, did you ever see the movie Broadway Danny Rose?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they used to share jokes. I mean, that was their thing. I mean, if you were going east, you were going west. Hey, do the one about that was a thing back in the day.
Absolutely.
Everybody kind of wrote for each other.
Yeah. And it's funny because to a degree, I remember every tag that every comic gave me. If I still use it, I'm like, this is Tommy Thompson's tag. Give me that tag. So
well, you know what? That's nice that you say that. Because a lot of guys don't appreciate. I always, no matter how. I mean, I don't care if it was a guy that was an open micer. if he had something funny to say, I appreciated it and used it. And I feel the same way when I try to give somebody a tag. You know, I always like when they, you know, at least say, you know, thank you for thinking of me. But, you know, because some people get upset. They don't even want you to do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Here's another interesting question. You're on the road making towns with 3 other comics, dead or alive. Which 3 guys would you pick to be in the car with you? That's a great question.
Oh, wow. Dead or alive? Well, you know, that's a loaded question because you know, Richard Pryor, obviously, but do you really want him in the car doing a bunch of, you know, a black guy up down south doing a bunch of lines in a car? I mean, you're begging to get arrested. I mean, if I mean to pick their minds, I mean, who wouldn't want Carlin, Pryor, and God, I don't know, Dave Chappelle. I don't know. Carlin, Pryor, and I'd take one more. Who would I take? Who would be Freddie Prinze?
Oh, yeah. Freddie Prinze is
a great
one.
Let me just say this because when you talk about influences, he only lasted for a couple years before he killed him. But he was like an influence when I was a kid. So I always liked that. I always wonder what he was all about.
Absolutely. Did you ever?
And Richard Belzer was an influence.
Oh,
and
Richard Belzer
was an influence.
Richard Belzer, one of my
used to love
favorites.
You know, matter of fact, today I was watching Scarface, and he was in the club scene where he's the stand-up. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I used to love the show that he did on USA back before, you know, the one where I mean, that was one of the best shows. I watched it all the time. Did you ever get to work with Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah, the very first time I was at the Comedy Store in LA, right before I was supposed to go on, Dangerfield pulled up in a big limo, a bunch of blondes in there, a bunch of coke, jumped out, went up and did 10 minutes, destroyed the room, and then they brought up the amateurs again. So that was my opening line was how about a round of applause for my opening act, Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, my gosh.
No, I met him a couple of times just to shake his hand, but never got to work with him.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Willie, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and thank you seriously so much for doing this with me. I it was
a lot of fun, John. And the offer open, please, if you're in August, come on in and come on in and hang out with us at the Bone and do some time.
I would love to. I'll make a point of it because my mom's birthday is on the 20th. So
there you go. That would be a perfect birthday present.
I have a reason. Awesome, my friend. All right, folks. Willie Farrell, you can follow him if you want to watch. It's on his Facebook page, and I'll put a link up here so you can watch his actual when he and his wife are telling the story about COVID-19 and how he got through it, because it's just fascinating. It deserves a lot more watches. So we'll have you do that. There's Carol. Thank you, Carol. We appreciate you watching every day. Ladies and gentlemen, again, before we go, I want to encourage you, if you're going through Facebook or YouTube or wherever you watch streaming stuff, please stop. If you see somebody doing something like this, if you see somebody playing acoustic music, if they're doing an open comedy mic, whatever it may be, stop, give it a like, watch it for a while. If it's not your cup of tea, move on, find something else. At this point, when we're all still kind of stuck, everybody wants that connection to the outside world. And when you do that, you just give a like. People know what they're doing has value, and it's very, very difficult for creative people at this point. So you're helping them out. You're an all-star when you do that, in my book. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, folks, I have Peggy Miller from Minneapolis. She will be talking with us. So until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Johnny.